Hi and welcome back. This is part 4 of handling a scale track. In this segment of the video, we're going to be covering handling a turnout in this location right here. We're going to be handling a number 8 turnout. This video is just going to show you the process that I use, how I go about doing it, as well as the parts and so forth I incorporate into it for detailing and so forth. As you can see here, we've already got the ties laid. They've been sanded, stained. They're all ready to go. Before you begin handling a turnout, as well as any other portion of your track, make sure you take that time, make sure that everything's nice and level, that the ties are all sanded, everything's nice and even and ready to go. If not, it'll wreak havoc with you when you're trying to get everything to function and operate properly. With that said, I'm going to reposition the camera, and we'll be getting to it in just a moment. Hi, welcome back. What I'm going to begin with first off here is placing an insulated rail joiner right on this rail here. The reason for that is I want to be able to have these two staging tracks isolated from the turnout itself, because when I'm not utilizing these tracks, I'm not going to have them powered up. So I want to go ahead and again attach an insulated joiner bar right in this area here. And if you remember from yesterday when I posted the other video, I'm going to be utilizing these right here. Again, they have this raised ridge on the back, which will provide that physical barrier between the two sections of rail. What I'm going to do is just take a little bit of super glue and place it on the back of the joiner itself. This works really well just to get it attached and hold it in place until I'm able to drive some spikes and stuff in. And again, we don't need a lot on here. We're going to go ahead and just adhere that in. I'll zoom in on this in a moment so you can actually see what I'm doing here. We're going to go ahead and place the other one on. And again, this is just going on with some super glue. Nothing fancy at all. What's nice about this is it'll hold them on very securely until I'm ready to go ahead and put some spikes in underneath that there. Let me zoom out a little bit here. It's going to be a portion right here. And again, we just attach that with some super glue. And this will hold it securely in place until we've got our other rail in place and I go to begin the spiking of that of the stock rail here. But that'll hold it very well. And I'm going to go ahead and reposition, and we'll begin with our section of the rail. Okay, I've opened up to this wider shot so you can get a little bit more of an overall view of things. Got my section of rail right here. What I'm going to do is position that into the opposite end of our insulated rail joiner we put on before. This is actually what's called a stock rail. Insert that in there. I'm going to do it in the same fashion as I attach the joiner to the other side. So this time I'm just going to put a little bit of super glue on the end of the rail. And what this will do is, again, just help that attach to this piece of rail. Help start to hold things in position. Okay, got that in there. We'll apply just a little bit of pressure to the opposite end of the joiner itself to help it seat into the rail. I'm going to hold it there for a few seconds till the super glue takes hold and it's holding things securely. Then what we'll do after this is begin spiking this rail into place in a few sections here, just to begin to hold things down. I like to begin with this stock rail first because it gives me something to work off of when I'm trying to gauge all the other components of the turnout itself. This is a nice straight-in turnout. It's not a curved turnout or anything of that nature, so it's a really simple, straightforward process, and I thought an excellent thing to go ahead and show all of you what I'm doing and, again, how I'm doing it. At this point here, just so you know too, and I didn't touch on it and I wish I did a little bit earlier, what I did is underneath these ties, and you can't really see it in this video right now, what I went and did, just to give me a loose, vague kind of an idea of where to position these components, I went and I downloaded these track templates, if you will, off the Fast Track's website. You should be seeing that website address right now on the video. Reason I like it is I was able to take it, cut it out, glue it down on top of my Homasote here, And again, you have to understand that that was, designed and built for, their stuff and everything. But it works very well, especially when you're first starting out handling these turnouts. It gives you that visual cue, that visual reference to go off of, as far as where do the rails go, where do I position my frog, the guardrails, and so forth. And it gives you something really good to work off of. And I don't know about all of you, but I know I'm a visual person. If I can see it, I can comprehend it and get it a lot quicker than if I just read about it. So that's what I did, and that's what's actually underneath these ties. Is their template. I can still see it even after the staining and the coloring and so forth. But it helps give me that little bit of visual reference I need to go off of. It helps me out. It works well. And again, it's free. You can download it, print them out on your printer. And believe me, it's well worth the few minutes it'll take you to do that. Okay, so now we've got our rail glued up here. It's dried up nicely. What I want to do at this point is just loosely put in the components I'm going to be using. I've got my frog here. Again, this is a number 8. It's looking all brown right now because I've got it, my base color of how I weather things painted up. What I'm doing right now is, again, I'm going off the jig here, off the template rather. It's helping me position my frog in about the location it's going to go in. The reason I'm doing that is because now I want to position my guardrails. That's what these sections of rail are here. I want to get those into place so that when I'm doing my spiking, what I want to avoid is putting in a standard size tie plate in this area here where this guardrail is going to be going, okay? Because this guardrail takes up space. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. I'm going to reposition so you do get the better view. But what I need to utilize in those locations are these longer flat tie plates. They're longer, and what they will do is they will actually span the gap underneath the stock rail and underneath the guardrail and provide me with plenty of spiking surface and that little bit of added detail and visual pop. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and start putting in some spikes just to hold this into place in the general area where I want it at, so we can begin working off of that. And what I like to do, since it's already secured at this end with the glue, and obviously this rail it's coming off of down here has been spiked already, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to drive in set up some tie plates, and in the areas I want to spike, I'm going to go ahead and position those loosely at the moment. It's on top of a few random ties. And again, in a moment here, I am going to reposition so you can get the better view of everything. I just figured maybe an overall shot would help out a little bit. And again, these are just going to be in a few locations, just so we can get things slightly secured. We don't need to have everything completely solidified yet, but I like to get this into place and get it basically locked into the position it's going to be in. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and stop now, reposition the camera, and get you some different shots so you can see it much better. Okay, I've repositioned the camera. Now you get a better view of what I was talking about. I've just set my guardrails in place as well as my frog. And again, the reason for doing that is so that I know where to not place these standard tie plates. Because again, they won't reach, they will not cover the area that I need to cover. We need to use those wider ones I showed you a few moments ago. Got a couple of tie plates positioned in here. I'm going to go ahead and just slide these in underneath my rail. Again, pardon my arm being in the way there, but again, this is just going to be in a few locations just to get the rail in position in relation to the edge of the ties, and give me a good place to start with here to work off of. Okay, got that pretty much into place. And now I've had several people email me and so forth and ask me, what do I use to gauge the spacing of the rail in relation to the edge of the tie? I do have that little jig, like I said, I made out of a scrap piece of tie. The bulk of the time, to tell you the truth, I just eyeball it. Definitely nothing scientific about it. There is some subtle variation, but you know what? In my mind, I rationalize it by saying, you know what, these tracks, especially from the era I'm modeling, stuff was laid, you know, without computer technology and all this other stuff. It is not going to be laser straight. It is not going to be perfect. I'm okay with some variation, some deviation. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead now, begin inserting some spikes. Slid a tie plate into position here. Other thing I like to do is just look down the length of the rail itself, make sure everything's lined up right where it needs to be. Now again, just to give you an idea here, what are we, about about seven or eight ties off of our insulated rail joiner. Like I said, with that being super glue, that's holding that end of the rail pretty well. It's not going to go anywhere. Another thing to remember when you're doing these spikes, if you need to pull some out and reposition things, don't be afraid to do that. Don't think the second you drive that spike down, oh well, that's it and that's where it's staying. You know, I've had to pull spikes and reposition things more times than I care to tell you about. It's just part of the learning curve, part of doing, and that's just how it's going to kind of end up. You know, there's times you're going to need to do that. Okay. Again, this is where the eyeballing part comes into process, or comes into play, I should say. Go ahead and just loosely get a spike in there. I'm going to get the other side in. What I think you're going to find is these turnouts, when you go to start handling these things, you know, if you're like myself, you know, I went and made my initial order from right away and spoke to Lou and got the components I needed, and I was all excited and couldn't wait. All of a sudden this box shows up at my door full of all these parts. I'm looking at them thinking, what in the heck do I do with this stuff? What was I thinking? But I found that just by taking my time and accepting the fact that, you know what, mistakes are going to be made, nothing is going to be perfect, things went a lot smoother for me. Anyway, again, so we've got a couple of spikes in this tie, and I'm going to widen out on the shot again a little bit here so you can see a little bit more. And again, I've got it spiked in this location right here, just behind the final position where my guardrail is going to go. What I'm going to do at this point is continue on with some spiking here. I'm not going to make you sit and watch that. All I'm going to be doing is the same process. I'm going to be inserting my standard size tie plates in here all along the way, getting this stock rail secured down. When I get done with that, we're going to come back, show you how I position the frog in relation to this stock rail here, and we'll be moving forward at that point. Okay, welcome back. I continued on with the spiking of the stock rail using the standard tie plates, pretty much all the way down its length until you get to the area where the closure rail starts to curve into it. I stopped at that point because that's when I'm going to need to revert to these longer flat tie plates again. As you can see here, this is the area I've prepared for the guardrail to be positioned. In here, instead of the standard tie plates, we're going to be utilizing these larger flat ones I've got. Got these from Right Away. Again, just love the products he has. If you can see here, there's several elongated holes as well as a couple just standard little holes. I like to use these standard holes when I get these in position. Drive a spike through either side where it's feasible. And that'll help hold this tie plate in position as I'm putting down the guardrail and spiking everything into place. So with that said, what I'm going to go ahead and do is just set my guardrail up here, get it loosely in its position where I want it to go. I like to start with my first tie plate pretty much in the center of the guardrail itself. Reason for that is it's a good place to start, get things spiked down, and it still allows me to move it around a little bit if I need to. What we're going to do is push that tie plate underneath pretty much until you got equal surface on both sides. And ideally what you're wanting to do here is those elongated holes I showed you just a moment ago. You want to have those adequately spaced on both sides of the guardrail as well as the stock rail. Those tiny holes like I showed you, I utilize those to drive a spike in, and what it does is it'll help hold that in place for me so that it won't move. So I'm going to go ahead and drive one in. Some folks I know take it once they get it in position where they want it, they'll kind of outline it, and they'll come back and actually just put a little dab of super glue or something underneath these to hold it in place, which is fine, I suppose. But if you decide down the road you need to take this thing apart for some reason, needless to say, with it glued down, it's going to be a bit of a chore. Okay. Got that in place. I'm not going to spike it just yet because I want to go ahead and insert a few more tie plates. Move it just adjacent to the first one we put in. Again, I'm going to slide it in, maintaining some equal spacing on both sides. I'm going to take a moment right now just to say, if you're not using all these detail parts like I'm using, and you want to just go ahead and spike directly to the ties and so forth, if you're not utilizing tie plates and whatnot, that's just fine. Just get your guardrail located where you want it to be. You know, hold it in place with your finger. Just get a spike in on one side and a spike on the other, and go at it that way. Again, that is perfectly fine. Like I said, these detail parts, again, it's a personal preference. You know, what you like, what you want to have on your layout. Plus, it's also a matter of budget, you know. A lot of these parts, these detail parts, like these flat tie plates here and other components as well, you really could make them out of styrene if you wanted to. You know, it's a little more labor intensive. You sit there and, you know, you got to take some time to cut your parts and whatnot, but you could do that. Probably without question a bit more cost effective. Again, just takes a little bit of your time and so forth, but hey, you know, pop down in front of the TV one night and get out a TV tray or something and go to town. You don't have to use these. You could just, like I said, go ahead and spike straight to your ties and call it a day. What I've gotten done here, I've spiked these plates into position. Now I'm going to actually go ahead and spike the either side of the rail here. First thing I'm going to do is spike on the side of the stock rail here first. Just nice gentle nudge. And again, the guardrail's still loose, and that's fine. It's, you know, we're not carving anything into stone here. Just taking the time to drive some of my spikes in. Again, same fashion as we did in the track video I did earlier. Same exact principle. So we're going to just continue on with that. I've got it in place. I'm happy with the position of the guardrail. I'm going to go ahead, get a spike in here. I'm going to push it down. Apologize for my finger in the way there, but I can only hold these things a certain way. Again, this is just being loosely done right now. Make everything kind of hard down, if you will, in a little while. Okay. Now, what will happen is these plates on the back of this guardrail will actually help it to index itself with the rail. Let me just take a second here. Hang on a minute here. Okay. Now what we're going to do is just continue on again, adding our tie plates underneath, and we're going to get it all spiked down. I'm just going to use the same method you saw me use on these other couple of tie plates here, and then I'll take you in for a closer look. Hi, and we're back. Okay, what I continued to do was the spiking of our guardrail here. Again, I utilized these smaller holes in these larger tie plates here just to hold the tie plate in the location I wanted it in. And then I continued on with the spiking of the guardrail itself. Again, within this flangeway here, this area right in here, you don't need to spike in there. Number one, it won't fit. Number two, it's not necessary. We've got the spikes on the guardrail applying force in that direction, as well as spikes on the opposite side of the stock rail, applying force back in this direction. So as you can see, everything is definitely very, very secure, okay? The other thing, as I dropped my pencil, that we didn't talk about earlier that I wish I had was this flangeway itself, okay? There is a minimum and a maximum amount of space you want to have here. Too wide, it's not going to do its job in guiding the wheels through the area of the frog. Too narrow, the wheels, the flange could actually strike in here. It could bind up. It could actually cause it to ride up over it, possibly derailing the car or the engine. So you want to have some adequate spacing in there. Now, how do we check that? Well, I use this NMRA gauge. Now, again, there's different areas of this gauge that are utilized for different things. The area that we're going to focus on is going to be this area right in here. Okay, this is for checking the flangeway. Okay. I'm going to try to bring this in a little bit closer, just give you hopefully a bit of a better shot of it. Down over here, this gauge here is the minimum. This is the maximum. Okay? The maximum tab is utilized to determine the maximum width of that flangeway, this being the minimum width of the flangeway. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and tighten up on the shot here. And I'm going to go ahead and show you what I mean, also give you a better look at the completed guardrail itself. As we zoom down in here, you're able to get a better look at the spiking and so forth of that guardrail and see what was done there. And again, with this gauge, okay, again down here, with this being our maximum width and this being our minimum, I'm going to begin by checking it with the maximum. It does not fit, and I'm happy with that. I don't want the maximum to fit because that really, for me, that tells me I've got a little too much room in there. I'm going to check with the minimum gauge. You can see it fits in there, and I get a little bit of side-to-side play. So that's good. I'm larger than the minimum allowable amount of room, but not over the maximum, which is good. I'm going to check it down the whole length there. Okay, that fits very well. The other thing I like to use, I'm going to go ahead and zoom back out here to show you something else. I like to have a spare wheel set laying around. Okay, just a simple little wheel set like this. What you should do first is check it to make sure these wheels themselves are within gauge. Make sure they're not too wide or too narrow. Okay, the area of the gauge we could utilize for that purpose is this area right here. Is the check gauge. Okay, this indentation right here, as well as this indentation right there. Now, what you're doing is you want the back of the wheel set, the inside of these wheels, okay, fitting against the inside of these cutouts, if you will, these indentions here. To do that, just take your wheel set and get it up in here. All right, it is right on the inside of that gauge, which is good. Okay, check the opposite wheels on the other axle. Those are also right on the money. Okay, so we're good with this wheel set. What I like to do with these wheel sets is this is a good way for you to visually see if things are going to run properly. Now, obviously, I've only got one rail here, so I'm just kind of eyeballing it in terms of being level. But this will let me see if anything's going to bind up or ride up on top of anything else, and it does not. It flows real nice and smoothly through there. Okay, I got a little bit of side play in there, okay, and that's all right. But everything goes nice and smoothly through there, okay? So that's what we want to see. You don't want anything to be binding up, but you don't want it to be overly large overly large either, I should say. There's definitely a sweet spot with this. What I'm going to do now is that's going to actually conclude this part of the video because I don't want these being too long. In the next part of the video, we're going to go ahead and position the frog. I'm going to show you how we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to get the frog positioned as well as continuing on with the other stock rail and so forth in the area here, and then we'll move on to handling our closure rails and the points and so forth. But this segment of the video is going to end right here.